and we'll talk about how you choose how you choose the gear that you're going to take on your hike. We'll talk a little bit about other resources we know about and invite other people's ideas in. And we also hope that this could be a way to meet other people in your community who like the outdoors. So keep using the chat if you want to comment on things that we are mentioning, or if you want to share about a place you've been to, that's really cool. If you see a picture of a place you recognize, that kind of thing, definitely keep using the chat. And yeah, and we are here to share our knowledge with you, but we also want to bring in the community knowledge that you also have and hear your ideas and thoughts as well. So we know a lot, but we also aren't going to be gatekeepers or like the only experts on this topic. We want everyone to be able to share what they're excited about too. So those are our goals for today. And if anyone needs a break from any of me talking, just feel free to keep asking questions and using the Q&A function, and we'll try to get to them sort of sprinkled throughout so that we can break it up a little. Also, I'm taking little breaks to read everyone's comments in the chat about all the places you like. Okay, should we begin with the hike planning worksheet?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to, Alana is going to post in the chat our hike planning worksheet that we have for you. And hopefully this tool can be something that'll help you think through the stuff that we're talking about today, and also can be useful for you in the future, especially if planning hikes is newer to you. The goal of this tool is to just to give you something to kind of do like a little planning exercise. And should I screen share that just to show people while I'm kind of walking through it? Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay, so Alana's putting it in the chat. I am showing this. This is kind of informal because it's just my Google Docs, but we've put together this hike planning worksheet for you. And the different things that this worksheet is encouraging you to think about is going to be the logistics of your day, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, who you're bringing with you, and etc. So you don't need to fill this out right now, but if you start thinking like, oh, actually, I would really like to check out Castle Rock State Park, or I really want to like jot down the name of this place that I saw someone mention in the chat, you can add notes for yourself. When you click the link that Alana posted, it should give you the option to make a copy. So then this can just be yours and you can just use it however you would like in the future. And there's spaces to just kind of like, when you're going to someday, whenever this hike is going to be, or this adventure that you're planning is going to be, it will encourage you, okay, let's look up the weather forecast. Let's jot down the name of the trail we want to walk on. And I don't want to over explain this, so I'm going to try to go through it very briefly, but if people have questions about it, now's a great time to ask. Yeah, we have little sections to kind of fill out your considerations. So you might write your park, Sanborn County Park. I think that's in Santa Clara. Okay, maybe I figured out a bus route or whatever. So whatever works for you, you can just use this as a tool. I'm going to look and see if there were any questions about this. Did you put the worksheet in the chat? Yes, the worksheet is in the chat as of now. Okay, someone asked, does this worksheet contain a list of equipment needed for hiking? That's a great question. There is not a list on this sheet because it's short enough that you could print it out at your house or at the library, and then fill it out with a pencil or whatever. But there is a list. If you're the kind of person who really likes checklists, which I am, there is a suggested checklist that you can look up, and that's down here. I have suggested Google search for the REI day hiking checklist. And REI, the outdoor retailer, has a really, really good day hiking checklist that you can, it's divided by categories of different types of gear. I really recommend that. In fact, I'll just look it up right now. So REI has a checklist for a lot of different types of activities. So if you're thinking of expanding into like backpacking after this or whatever, you can definitely go there for resources, and they make checklists that look like this. So I wrote about that on our worksheet, but this is theirs, so I can't steal it. So hopefully that helps. And you can see they're divided into category. And I'll post that in the chat as well. And does anyone else have any questions about like suggestions for how to use this? There's really no right or wrong answer of how to use it. We just wanted to give you a helpful tool. Okay, so I just sent the REI Day Hiking Essentials checklist in the chat. There's a good comment in here. It's important to take water and a snack if you're hiking for more than an hour. That's really good because that's the mindset we want to be in, is like using this critical thinking about what's going to make our hike fun and safe. And so what I really like about this comment is it says, if you're hiking for more than an hour, you want to have water and a snack. And that shows that there's different lengths of hikes. Like you might be on a hike in your local park and you're only walking for 15 or 20 minutes looking at the wildflowers. You might not need the same tools for that as you're going to need if you're going to go to Castle Rock and do the 6-mile loop. So those are the kinds of things that we want to encourage you to think about as we go through this. Okay, slide time. Slide time.
Slide.
The slides are back. Okay, so we're going to talk about some hike planning considerations or best practices. Again, we really want to bring in any community knowledge that you all want to share. So please keep using the chat for that and asking questions in the Q&A feature if you want to. So this is kind of an overview of some of the things that we consider when we're thinking about what kind of hike you want to plan. Okay. So one of the things I actually just want to start with is ability and interest level in your group. So thinking about what hike is right for your day or your group really starts with who you are and what you want to do and what the people who are with you want to do as well. So I really recommend starting there. And things to consider with that would be, what is everyone's level of physical activity that they're interested or able to do for the day? Do you want to go on a short walk that a multi-generational family can go together on, and there's not going to be giant rocks you have to climb over? Do you want to have a really intense, strenuous experience because you're trying to get a workout in? Are you a group of trail runners? Are you preparing for an upcoming backpacking trip or something like that? These are some of the considerations you can think about. And the reason I also say interest level is because any hike can be a fun hike if the people who are there want to be on that hike. So I think it's really worth thinking about, is this the hike that the park recommended, or is this the hike that is right for my group? And I would love if anyone wants to share thoughts about that, to just pop it in the chat at any time. But yeah, consider, like, are you with a group with your like you're with your younger siblings, or you're with really young children, or you're with a mixed group and some people are really fast and some people are really slow? What's going to work for your group so that you're going to have a fun time and everybody's going to be able to feel good about what you're doing. So things that you can use to think about that are when you go to a lot of these local parks, like some of the county or state parks that are in your area, often the park tries to help you out there by listing either on their website or on interpretive signs that are just informational educational signs at the park, maybe by the parking lot. They'll often show some examples of suggested hikes that you can do. They'll show a map with the trails on it highlighted, and they'll often break them into easy, moderate, and strenuous. So an easy hike often is going to be, and think about easy in terms of a category here and not as like whether or not it might be easy for you, because any of these can be easy or hard for different people. But the category of easy is often referring to trails that are really flat. They might be paved, they might be ADA accessible, which would mean that they're paved and they're at a really nice, easy grade so that people using wheelchairs or other assistive devices can go on that type of path. They might be really short, and they're often really close to the parking lot or close to a visitor center, have facilities. And these are also places that often will have maybe a ranger or a docent giving a free interpretive program will be at the easy hike trail, because you're not going to go deep into the farthest away part of the woods to like hear the ranger program. So those are things that you might see on an easy hike at the park. Moderate is usually, like someone else mentioned, once you're on a moderate trail, you might be looking at an hour to a couple of hours. You're more likely going to want different specific kinds of shoes, not necessarily really intense hiking shoes, but just on an easy trail, you might be able to get away with your Crocs or your flip-flops or whatever you just happen to be wearing that day. Whereas moderate, you're probably starting to get into a more like tie your shoelaces type shoe and be out for longer. And then strenuous is often going to be those ones that you're wanting to reserve for people who are like, I want to get out and have a workout today. I want to I'm okay with going on some uneven trail. I'm okay with going on parts that are a little steeper. That's where you start to see those things. And usually the sign where you will see them broken into these categories will also tell you information about how long they expect you to spend on the trail. Sometimes in like a hotter place or a place with hazards, they'll tell you, oh, if you're going on this strenuous trail, you need to bring this amount of water or things like that. And strenuous is usually going to be farther away from the facilities. It will take longer to get back to your car if there's an emergency and things like that. So those are some considerations around choosing your hike under the easy, moderate, and strenuous. And okay, there's some cool suggestions in here for easy but pleasant walk/hikes, which I really think is great. There's a lot of really good, just like Linda mentioned in the chat, there is really good in Santa Clara and in general in the South Bay. There's a lot of really good, really long greenways and bike paths and stuff. The Bay Trail, the Los Gatos Creek Trail. There's lots of sections that are like this where they're scenic. You're going to be outside. You're going to be experiencing nature, but there's a lot of ways that you can modify it to meet your needs. So thank you so much for that comment. Cool. So the next thing I want to encourage people to consider with planning your hike is timing and weather. So once you start from this basis of like, what kind of hike am I going to do? You're kind of asking yourself, what kind of day do I want to have? Do I want to go on a leisurely stroll in the woods or the mountain or by the ocean or by the bay? Or do I want to be really hoofing it up a hill, really sweating? And again, that can be under any of these categories, but because we're all different. But once you're thinking about what kind of day you want to have, the other things to consider are timing and the weather and the environment. So, for example, Right now, it is very sunny outside my window, but earlier today it was a torrential downpour outside my window, and there was extremely high winds. So these are things that if I had really wanted to go on a hike today, I would have checked out today's forecast to see when the storm is supposed to be moving through, where I think it's going to be affecting the mountain or the roads, how I'm going to get there, etc. Thinking about that, thinking about what kind of risks I'm personally willing to take. Maybe I really love hiking in the rain, so it's no problem, but I know that there's actually going to be more risks to me because, there might be a risk of a like a mud or rock slide or things like that, other things with the weather. So that's something that you're going to want to consider. Timing and weather basically go together, but the other thing with timing is if you're going to plan a hike for yourself that's going to take 6 to 8 hours, you're wanting to get to the park and start a lot earlier in the day than if you are just going to go on a stroll in the afternoon or after work one day at the Bay Trail or at the trail that goes nearest to your house. Then you don't need to worry as much about the timing usually because you're going to be on a shorter adventure. So those are some things we want you to consider under that. There also are a lot of different ways that different people calculate how long it takes to do different hikes. So you can look up some of those or just do it based on over time. You'll start to realize how long it takes you to do certain amounts of hiking or walking. But things to consider there are if you're a group that wants to have a leisurely day or wants to make sure you can take it easy because of something going on with your knees or just your mood for the day or whatever, you might want to build in more time for that. You are probably going to want to think about more time for routes that have a lot of uphill. Or maybe if you're me, you need to plan in an hour and a half for getting to the scenic meadow and eating your sandwich that you packed and journaling and having a little hangout in the sun moment before you keep hiking. So these are the things that you're going to want to take into consideration when you're talking about your timing, because at least for me, when I'm going on a hike, I am not power walking through the mountain without looking at anything and then getting back in my car. I am like taking a look at things, looking at the foliage, like touching the moss. So these are the things that you want to think about too, is like, do you want to read every piece of signage? That's also something that takes time. Okay, and don't forget you can ask questions. I'm gonna look in here. Okay, someone is asking about the Santa Clara County Parks Trail Challenge. I also would like to know about that. I don't know anything about it, but maybe later or soon Megan can answer about that. Okay, Megan's on the case.
There's also a comment here around, an average hiking speed of 2 miles per hour. Nice. Someone also just did a hike that was 8.5 miles.
Yeah, it's actually so funny how much time stopping to take pictures ends up taking. And all those little things that really make a fun, special day a lot of the time, or for people who are newer to hiking, it really makes a difference to have time to stop and have a snack and have water and stuff like that. So we're not telling you, oh, make sure you plan to have 6 hours if you're going to do an 8.5 mile hike, because it's going to be something that will change for individual people or individual groups or whatever. Although if anyone is like, I really came here to get told exactly how long I needed it to do this hike I'm planning, we can give our opinion on it later on this, but we really just want to encourage you to think about what kind of day you want to have. And the other thing is that you can always finish your hike early, and that's usually not a problem. But finishing a hike late because you have underestimated how long it's going to take can be where you start to have trouble, because now the sun's going down, or you're super hungry because you didn't pack enough food, or people are getting really tired, or the gates closed and now you're going to have a hard time figuring out what to do with your car or whatever. So that's also a little bit more of like a err on the side of planning that you need more time for the hike, is my suggestion. Okay, and it looks like we got the link on the County Parks Challenge, so people can take a look at that too. It's in the chat. Okay. Other considerations, here we say bathrooms, but just, yeah, bathrooms and facilities in general. Some of the places that you can go that we might talk about later are going to have a really nice bathroom or a nice visitor center where you can speak with ranger. Really just like the level of facilities, which is like the buildings and amenities that you can use at parks, is super, super different between county parks, state parks, and then national parks, or like the federal level park system. So if you go to like a random patch of wilderness land in the national forest somewhere in the Sierras, there's not going to be a bathroom. There's not going to be anything. There's just going to be the ground. But if you go to a state park, there's probably going to be nicer bathrooms, or there might be a pit toilet. These are the things that you can consider, especially if you're going to go on a longer hike or a longer day hike. But also keep in mind that on these longer hikes, there typically are not going to be facilities along the way. So you might want to bring something to take care of your bathroom needs while you're out on your hike, if that's a consideration. If people have questions about that, I'm not going to go into it now, but if people have like bathroom on hiking questions, please just feel free to put them in the chat and we can talk about them later. So that's a consideration. I also really like, personally, I really like going to visitor centers at parks. So I think it can be really nice. Often there will be like one person who's taking the parking fee and passing out the maps and answering questions, and kind of is like the emergency contact for the park for the day. And those people also, I really like talking to them, because sometimes I just show up somewhere and I'm like, I don't have a plan for what hike I want to do, but I want to spend 1 to 3 hours. I like brought this amount of stuff to be out, and these are the kinds of things I want to see, and they can give advice. So that's another consideration about facilities. Whereas if you show up to a place that's just like a big open space preserve, you can still have a great time, but you're going to be making your own choices, and there's not going to be anyone to ask for advice. I see in the chat, Santa Clara County Parks have good bathrooms, which has been my experience as well. Okay, this next bullet on here, we talked about length of hike in the terrain. One of the options for how you can calculate an estimate of how much time it's going to take is on here, which is give yourself about 30 minutes for every mile, plus time for a snack and breaks. If you're in a really big group, you're going to be moving slower, so you can add time for that. If you're doing a lot of uphill, add time for that as well. But also, if that does not work for you and you're like, no, I go 1 mile an hour, just throw this out and make your own. This is just a suggestion. But considerations with the terrain, I will talk about. Terrain here is referring to like physically the ground and the trail and the like physical environment that you're going to be walking or hiking on. So if you are someone who's looking to get out for a more casual stroll with your big mixed group or whatever, then you might want to be on a wider path. You might want to be on a paved path. You might want to be on something that's nice and smooth. If you are like trail running with your super athletic dog and you're just zooming along, then the terrain you might be excited to go on might be a single track trail, which is what they call it when it's like one person or one bike can go on it. It might be a lot more bumpy. It might be more muddy or mucky, or like have gravel and be slippery. You might be on a smaller, skinnier trail, so the trees are closer to you and you might be getting like whacked by leaves at some points. So those are things that you want to consider as well. And also things, often the that anyone who's working at a park will be able to tell you about. If you're like, I really want to go on a wide path, they'll often have an opinion about like, where's the way to go for that. But those are things to consider too, because they might be things that like do or don't work well for your body. Like when my knees are bothering me, I really don't want to go on a really steep single track trail downhill that's just been muddy because it's been raining, because it just doesn't feel good. So those are the things that I'll look into. Okay. Clothing, food, and water. Should I do a gear show and tell right now for this?
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, everyone, we'll do a gear show and tell. So talking about clothing, food, and water, these are things that if you later after this, or as you're following along, if you're using the worksheet, there's some suggestions for thinking through that. But just starting with food and water, bring water when you go hiking. If you're like 5 minutes from your car the whole time because you're just looking at the interpretive loop, it might not be as big of a deal, but you might get to a park and find out that the water fountains are closed or that there are no water fountains. You definitely want to bring your own water. That's like a top thing for your health and safety. Carry more than you think you're going to need, and that's great. And then for food, also bring more food than you think you're going to need. You might be unexpectedly on a super long hike that you didn't realize was going to take you a really long time. And the food and water is important for your safety, because you really want to be out there enjoying your hike and not thinking about how you feel like you're going to pass out, or like feeling, especially with the heat waves that we've been having. If you're going out in the summer and it's supposed to be a beautiful sunny day, if there is not shade on your hike, you're really going to want extra water, because you want to keep yourself cool so you can have an enjoyable time on that hike. But we'll think about gear, or we'll talk about gear now. I want to show some options of types of clothing you can use for hiking. These are not rules about what you have to bring. And if you're like, I hate that, all looks really ugly to me, like I want to use something else, I also want to give you the information about why this type of clothing works for me, so that you can pick something that's going to work for you. So I'm literally gonna just show you a hiking outfit. Okay, so I want to start with something that I used to think was not cool and I never wanted them, but now I have them, which is these zippy pants. You do not need to have zippy pants. I know they might be kind of going in and out, but you don't need zippy pants. But what I like about my hiking pants is they're lightweight. They are not made of cotton, because cotton can get really heavy, and like if it gets wet from your sweat or wet from the rain, it will get really cold. And in the summer, it might be fine to like have some wet cotton clothes on because it'll cool you down, but I wouldn't hike in pants like that because they'll like start to chafe. So that's why I don't like that for me. Do you need to go to an outdoor store and buy a fancy pair of expensive hiking pants? No, you do not. You can go to Goodwill and look for anything that's like an athletic material, something that's synthetic, which is just like not cotton. Those things are going to be really good for this kind of stuff because it can go in different kinds of environments. It's lightweight, it's comfortable. You should pick something that you could do a sport in for a while, because that's what it is, and your comfort is important. And also, if you're like, I don't feel comfortable because I hate the way this looks on me, it's also worth looking for something that you're gonna like, so that you actually wear it and feel comfortable when you're out. I'll show you my favorite hiking shirt. This is like shot my closet, everyone. This is my favorite hiking shirt. Oh, I should turn off my background because I keep being hidden.
Yeah, I think you should
How do I make it go away? Okay, let's see. How about now?
The shirt's kind of blurry.
Okay, hold on. You can just see my house, everyone. Whatever. So this is my favorite hiking shirt. It is a very thin material and it's long sleeves. So because it's so thin, it's very comfortable for if it's really hot out. This isn't making me like super hot. It also, if I'm sweaty, the sweat is like drying off and going away. I especially like it. There's a lot of places in the Bay Area where you're like, I want to go up this like peak so that I can look out and see over the bay or like see over to the ocean. But then it turns out that you get sort of to a part where there's no trees above you and you're just in the sun for a long time, especially if you're going to some of these really amazing open spaces that are in the peninsula and the South Bay, especially in Santa Clara. Like, I think some of these ones that were mentioned in this chat are like this too. A lot of open spaces specifically don't have a lot of shade. And so this is a shirt that I freaking love to wear because it is like carrying my own shade on my skin and protects my skin. Ooh, there's another Zippy Pants fan in here, but they warned that you get pulled over at the airport because of the zippers. Okay, that's smart. I'm gonna keep that in mind. But so those are some things I like. I have really lightweight wool sock. Oh, back to the shirts for a second. You can get synthetic, like athletic material shirts like that. You don't have to get a fancy, really nice one at an outdoor store. There's so many at Goodwill or Savers or wherever you like to do secondhand shopping. There's also a lot of this kind of clothing at Costco and other places like that where you can get it lower cost. So just putting that out there. But I really like having these like really lightweight. These are my favorite hiking socks. They have bears on them that you can see when I have my shoes on. But a nice like lightweight wool sock will keep your it will keep your feet a little warmer if you're in a cold environment, but also if you're in a really hot environment, it will help manage your sweaty feet so that you're not getting like really intense hot feet and sweaty blister situations like you might if you wear cotton socks. So I think it's worth having at least one pair of like a wool or wool blend sock. And again, you don't need to get a fancy one. You can just get any one that is made out of that kind of material. I've heard great things about the Costco wool socks.
I was just gonna say Costco has some great like packs of wool socks.
All of my friends who grew up in colder environments are like, that's where you gotta go for the wool socks, to Costco. I guess that's like a deep part of the culture.
I guess.
Please share in the comments also if you have a good tip on where to get good, inexpensive outdoor gear, because that's important to me. Okay, other things I personally will bring. I will bring a hat. Oh yeah, it's Costco and Darn Tough. Darn Tough is my new favorite brand. That's where my bear socks are from, but you don't need them. I like to wear a hat. I like to wear my sunglasses, which I don't have in here because I'm inside. If I'm hiking and it's like rainy or cold, I might, instead of my super lightweight warm weather or long sleeve shirt, I'll wear my long sleeve warmer shirt. So this is again just an example. There's many different types of things that will do this for you, but I have a shirt that's made of this synthetic material. It's long sleeve, it's stretchy. And if you do go to an outdoor store, this would be like a mid-weight layer. So that's just like lightweight to heavyweight is just how you think about it in fabrics. And this is nice because it'll still keep me warm even when I'm sweating. So I would not wear it in the summer, but in the winter or like on a cold, rainy day, this is a choice that I might make for hiking. Other things I might bring for hiking in colder weather are a lightweight pair of gloves, any kind. I really like my like little lightweight wool blend gloves and little beanie, but anything that you have in your closet is fine. And here's an example of a way that you can carry stuff. I have my little day pack. It's just a smaller backpack. It's a little fancy, but it's not too fancy. And then it has this like little clip. The clip is just keeping it so it's not like flipping around while I'm using it. But you can kind of carry stuff with you any way that is comfortable for you. So if you have a backpack that's comfortable that you use for school or for work, that often can work fine. Sometimes if you're going on a shorter hike and you're going with a group, and a lot of people have those little drawstring bags from a free event, that can be fine too. The things that you want to think about are, for me, I really like to have my hands free. So I don't want to carry anything in my hand. I don't want to be carrying a water bottle in my hand or like my phone or whatever. I want to have it in a backpack or a fanny pack or something, because I want to be able to hold my hiking poles, which we can also talk about. Or I want to like slip and fall and then catch myself somehow. Like I don't like worrying about having stuff in my hands. But you just want to think about, is your bag going to have enough space for your layers, your extra clothes, your extra snacks, your like mini art set that you're going to do when you get to the view or whatever. And does it have room for everything? And also, is it supportive so it's not going to like hurt or bother you while you're using it? So that's where you can get into some problems with things, because they're like, you might be, if you're not using a backpack, that's fine, but you just want to think about, is the way you're carrying things going to end up annoying you or hurting you while you're hiking? So you don't want things to be like swinging around or really digging into your shoulders, or you're carrying a tote bag and it does that thing where it keeps slipping off. So, okay. And I want to show, this is the last thing I will make you look at. My hiking poles are elsewhere, but these are totally unnecessary, but they can be nice if you want to get really, really into really long hikes. So this is a reservoir. That is, I'm sure, one of many names for these things. It is basically like a bag that if I'm going on a long hike, I'll fill this whole thing up with water. This one holds 3 liters, but you can get smaller ones too. And then I'll close it, and it'll go in like a special sleeve in my backpack, or just like plop it into any old backpack, in like a laptop sleeve in a backpack, for example, because you want it to stay at your back. And then this little giant straw will come out, and then I can drink it while I'm hiking, and I don't have to like fiddle and try to get my water bottle out of my backpack. So this is something that can be really nice if you decide you want to start going on longer hikes. But you also just may want to get a small lightweight bottle. I really like the 1/2 liter Nalgene's because they're really my favorite. Yeah. And I don't have poles to show, but I personally like poles because they're very supportive to like your knees and ankles. Hiking poles, if you can visualize someone holding like a high-tech walking stick, that's basically what they are. They are something that you can use to help you like take pressure off your legs when you're going up or downhill, and they kind of help stabilize you, and they carry some of the weight of the things that you're carrying. So hiking poles can be really nice. Hiking sticks is great, even just like finding a nice stick at your hike. And I believe that you can borrow hiking poles from the Santa Clara Library.
Yes, I was just going to say that. And Megan put that in the chat.
Yes, check them out. I really, really love hiking poles. Yeah. And behind this,
I was just, what do you need to put on your feet?
Oh, what do you need to put on your feet? Some shoes. There's lots of options of what kinds of shoes. Alana is showing her shoes because I left mine outside in the storm and they're covered in mud. So thank you, Alana. Nice things about hiking. The reason that you might want to consider like hiking specific shoe is they often have more tread or like things to give you traction and grip on the ground, or if you're hiking over rocks, they often have more ankle support. So if you're going to be on uneven ground, that can be nice. And I don't know, sometimes it's nice to just have like a designated shoe that gets gross. I personally I always hike in like a hiking boot or hiking shoe, but then when I'm in the car or like on my transit journey to get to the place, I'm usually wearing different shoes. And that way, when I get back to the car, I can switch from my hiking shoes into my regular shoes, and then my feet feel nice. So these are things to consider. We have another Zoom user saying they love hiking poles. Okay, this
Let's ask a question around the ideal height for hiking poles.
you're asking me a question about the ideal height. Oh wait,
In the Q&A.
the Q&A. That's a good question. So I think that most hiking poles that you're gonna encounter, either, I bet the ones that you can borrow from the library are like this, but can correct me if I'm wrong. Most hiking poles will be adjustable heights, because when you're going up a hill, you can use shorter poles, and when you're going down a hill, you could use longer poles, but they're really about the height of you. It like the answering the question is about how tall you are. So for me, my hiking poles, I'll adjust them to a length so that when I'm standing comfortably on like a flat ground, I'm gonna just demo, I guess. I'll have my poles so that my hands are like here. And that's really nice because then when I'm hiking, it's like bah, 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 bah. I don't want to be like doing something like this. I don't want to be reaching down for them. I want my hands to be like in a nice comfortable position for them. So that's also why then if I'm going downhill, for my poles to actually reach the ground in front of me, I need a longer pole. So I'll like open up my pole and stretch it because mine changed size. Like a telescope, kind of. That's their telescoping. I see this comment about hiking boots a half size bigger and why. Someone asked a follow-up question about that. And Arlene, definitely like share more about your thought process. I think there's a lot of reasons why people get different sizes of hiking boots. It can be nice to get bigger ones because maybe you're using thicker socks for hiking than you usually are, or yeah, maybe because your feet are like getting tired or under a lot of stress, like the blood will like they'll swell a little. But if you are looking to purchase hiking boots and you go to an outdoor retailer, you can definitely have a really detailed conversation with someone working there about why you might want to choose different sizes, what size is going to work for you, because you also don't want it to be too big and sliding around because that might cause you blisters. So yeah, that's a really good note. You might have a different size of hiking boot than you might of your regular shoe. Okay, we also have a suggestion on a longer hike to take hand sanitizer, moleskin, and chapstick. And the moleskin, for anyone who doesn't know, is like, it's kind of like a thick band-aid you can put around a blister to give it some protection against the shoe. Does anyone have any other questions about things you might want to bring? This was, again, not comprehensive or going to work for every single hike. And so that's why I also really encourage looking at that REI hiking checklist, because it'll give you really, really detailed, detailed list. Okay, and then these other things I'll just talk about briefly. Oh yeah, not the too tight shoes. There's some good commentary happening in the chat for anyone who hasn't looked at it yet. The two last things I'll share just briefly about are financial planning and then safety and emergency planning. Financial planning, I just wanted to bring up that a lot of parks will charge an entry fee, either an entry fee or a parking fee or something like that. And so those are good things to look up ahead of time. Most of the county and state parks will have a website that'll say these things. They'll just share on there what you need to consider. You might be spending $10 to get a parking pass for the day. And also some parks have discounts for residents. So there might be a place that if you live in such and such county, the park in that county you can get into for free, or you might be able to purchase a pass to all the parks in that county for the whole year for a discount. So those are some things you can look into. sometimes the library or other organizations will put together options where you can actually just get those passes for free. So that's worth a little poking around if you're looking to save some money. And then the last consideration is safety and emergency planning. We will not go very far into this because this is a really hefty topic, but for a short day hike, things that you want to keep in mind for safety and emergency planning are you going to have cell service where you're going? Is I think one of the biggest ones. When we're here at our house, a lot of us are in the 911 zone, which is if something really bad or dangerous happens in our house, we could call emergency services and they could come send an ambulance to us. If you are hiking on a long hike, you might not be in a place where you can immediately call for help because you might not have service. So thinking about just thinking a little bit ahead about that, or you might not be able to tell someone where you are until you drive back to service. So there's a little bit about that on the hike planning workshop or worksheet to kind of remind you, like, what are the things you need to keep in mind when you're going to go to a place where you're going to be a little more off the grid. But other things to consider are there people who are in your group who have different medical conditions or medical needs that you need to be aware of in advance? Is there someone who's bringing an inhaler? Is there someone who has a bee allergy and it's wildflower season? These are things that I really encourage you to just briefly talk with your group about before you go out so that you can know, hey, this person's allergic to bees. If they get stung by a bee on our wildflower hike, what are we going to do? Where is their EpiPen, or what is the way that they like to be treated or need to be treated for their safety? Just doing a little bit of advanced preparation and talking with your group about those things is really important. And you should definitely carry some kind of first aid kit. It doesn't have to be a super expensive one for the store. If you're going on a short hike, you might just need some Band-Aids and hand sanitizer and some gel for cleaning a little scratch that you get or whatever. Up to you can get really like super full first aid kits that will help you deal with a lot of different types of injuries or illnesses. But at the very minimum, you should have a little bit of stuff for like scrapes or bonking your knee on something. And you should definitely have all the medication that your group needs. So allergies, EpiPen, medication for a different health condition, or even if you're just someone who gets a lot of headaches, it's nice to just be able to deal with that when you're out so that you can enjoy the rest of your hike. So that's what I recommend thinking about in advance. Woo, that was a lot of me talking, but I hope that was helpful. And okay, what first aid items should we bring? So if you are going on a shorter hike, shorter in this case meaning 1 or 2 hours, I think you want to think about what are the most likely bad things that are going to happen on this hike. If you know that you are hiking somewhere with a bunch of rocks and you're going to have to be scrambling up and down the rocks, maybe the things that might happen are you might fall and scrape your skin. You might like step on a rock weird and like roll your ankle. Like these are the things that you would want to be prepared for a hike like that, and think about, okay, I know that I have an ankle that I have that rolls easily, and so I'm going to bring my backup ankle brace that I have because what if, or like other things are when it gets to be like the spring and the summer, are you going to a place with tons of poison ivy? Maybe you want to bring like gel to deal with that or things like that. But you're going to be thinking about what are the hazards that are really common, and then also what are things that like you absolutely cannot mess up. Like if someone has a severe allergy, do not go on the hike without the thing to deal with their severe allergy. So think about that, the likelihood of a thing happening, and also the consequence of like, how bad is it going to get if you're not prepared for this thing, and use that to kind of guide you. And there's really, really good resources on REI's website. There's really good educational like videos and checklists and all these things. So if you are looking to think more about your personal first aid kit, definitely spend some time on the computer at the library or at your home looking up resources on that. But there's not like an exact right answer for your first aid kit. I usually at a minimum have like headache medication and like a couple of band-aids if I'm going on something really short.
There's a really great resource on the REI website. It's called First Aid Kit Checklist. So Amy just mentioned that, but
I love their checklists. They're so good. Also, in the chat is good information about the California State Parks free vehicle entry pass from the library. So definitely look into that. Got some good information in there.
awesome.
All right. I need to refer to what we're doing on our schedule here.
I'm gonna shift into like specific locations in Santa Clara for where y'all can lead trips, and also wanna invite in like for any locations that are not up here on the screen for y'all to chime in as you have been doing in the chat and sharing locations that you love to spend time hiking at. So yeah, these are a couple of different places. We have, there's tons of open space preserves that are near the Santa Clara Library, and lots of different state parks and county parks. And I wanted to share with y'all like locationally, like where these county and state parks are from the library. So as you can see, all within, I would say like 30-minute to like an hour drive. Henry Co is definitely out there. But Sanborn County Park, Castle Rock State Park, Wonder, is it Litch?
I think
I'm curious. Oh, wow. Arlene sharing that Henry Co is closed now due to flooding. That's pretty, we've had so much rain. Are there any other county or state parks that y'all have that y'all go to go hiking at? Are there any other ones here, Amy, that you've been to? Or
yeah, I've been to Wonder Lake a bunch of times. I haven't been in a while, but that for a long time, I lived in East Palo Alto, and that was my favorite place to go because it's so quick to just get there, and just is like really nice and really in the trees. There's lots of really pretty moss and a lot of nice trails there. I also love Castle Rock. I'm definitely awaiting Big Basin reopening. Someone just said, is Big Basin open? Big Basin is still closed, I'm pretty sure. Although I did hear last year from one of the rangers there that they're starting to see a lot of nice new growth from after the fires there in 2020. So hopefully soon.
A lot of really great a lot of really great parks that people are recommending here. There's Rancho San Antonio and Stevens Creek Park. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of ones.
Alviso Marino is really nice because it's like in this part of the bay, like the wetlands area, so you can see. I think I'm thinking of the right place. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you can kind of walk around and see the bay. There's lots and lots of places you can park along Skyline, which is like this road that's on the ridge in these Santa Cruz Mountains. There's lots of trailheads in there. The names are escaping me of some of my favorite ones, but along the ridge is really nice because depending which side you are hiking on, you might be getting some views out over our part of the bay. Or you might be able to look out the other side and see to the ocean out past Santa Cruz, which is cool. And then also from Santa Clara, you're also not far from some of these other mountains in the East Bay. And there's a lot of county parks in the East Bay Regional Park System too that are also a reasonable drive if you have access to a car. But there are like some cool places in here that if you are tenacious, you can find transit journeys to, or even a shuttle sometimes. So look into that. And if you're someone who doesn't have a car, you also may want to consider poking around on Facebook and seeing if there is a group near you of like hikers in my city. And often people will use Facebook to like set up carpools or do this through meetup groups on meetup.com. So those are some other things that I recommend. If you're like, man, I want to go to these places, but I don't know how to get there, it can be really helpful to find buddies. So consider that. There's so many good suggestions in this chat. I hope people are looking at the chat. I really recommend it. And I think that the chat should be saved in the recording too.
Amazing. Yeah. So then this next sheet is just showing some different like nature preserves, and they are like somewhat closer. And as Amy is mentioning, there's just like a lot of wonderful places that are being mentioned in the chat. So this was just to give you like a little slice if you're new to going on hikes, or looking for some new areas to explore, just wanting to show you locationally like that y'all have so many different places to explore in the community. And so I think that's it just around location. And Amy, we already shared the worksheet, so I don't think.
Yeah. So we were going to do breakout rooms, but now we're in this panel, so we're not doing breakout rooms with you. But what we're going to do instead is Alana can put the music back on, and we'll give maybe like 5 or 10 minutes for people to just check out the hike planning worksheet, look at things, and ask questions, either just typing them into the chat or using the Q&A feature, and we can talk about them if you want to ask questions to us, because we want you to be able to have a little bit of time to think about how would you plan a hike for, say, this weekend or next weekend. And we'll just give you some time to do that, and then we'll check in around 5 minutes and see how people are doing. It's okay if you don't want to do this, or if you only just get a little bit of the way or spend all the time Googling parks or whatever. Please ask questions if you have any. Oh yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, like if you want us to unmute you so you can ask your question verbally instead of typing, that's also okay. You can just use the raise hand feature, and I think that Alana and I can call on you. So if you would like, that should be an option. Okay,
Yeah, it looks like somebody raised their hand, so I can allow them to talk.
Yeah.
Suki.
great.
Thank you. So I came in late. I came in at 5:45 because I had another class, but so I missed the part about the worksheet. So did you share a link for the worksheet or so that was my first question. Second one is the small group work that we're doing. You mentioned something about breakout rooms and then you said we're not in breakout rooms.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything. We're not in breakout rooms.
So, so are we doing are we in small groups or?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're just, everybody's still in like the panel format, but we're just leaving a little bit of open time here for people to look through the worksheet. It's linked, Megan just sent it again in the chat, the link to the worksheet, and you can make a copy of our worksheet, which is just like a suggested way of thinking through planning a hike.
Okay.
And so we're just giving a little time for that. And then if other people want to raise their hand to ask a question, please do, or use the Q&A feature or the chat. And so we'll just have a little time to answer that.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, you
Yeah, no
can
problem.
you
Yeah.
can meet me now. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and this is I heard is going to be recorded and then sent out to everyone. So if you want to go back over anything that you missed, if you just like really want to hear me talk again, you can you can watch it over again. There's a good question
here, Amy, in the Q&A.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that or me?
You can go for it if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so this question is, I want to get my 5-year-old daughter into hiking. How should I start and what should I do to make her motivated along the hike? I think that is a really great question. It doesn't have a one specific answer. I think the things that you can think about are, oh, now you're sharing sound. Okay, it's back. I don't know if that was me, but anyways, so things that you might want to consider are, what's going to be fun for your 5-year-old daughter? Does your daughter like wildflowers? Does your daughter like trees? Does your daughter like having a certain kind of special snack that she doesn't get to have as often? And then you can incorporate those things into your hike. I think really thinking about what's actually going to be fun for any kid or any person who is new to hiking or reluctant to try it is thinking about what's going to make it fun and comfortable for them. Maybe don't push it the like really intense hike up a mountain for somebody's first try if they're feeling a little unsure. Maybe it's a better choice to go somewhere just a short drive away, take a special snack along with you, plan plenty of time for stopping or looking at things, maybe even bring a little like a special book to read a chapter of in when you're on a break, or a really comfy blanket to sit on when it's time to take a break. I think having some of these these little luxuries can really make the experience really fun and nice for people. And that can be a really supportive way to bring people in who are new to hiking. Because you might not, but you might like a super intense, like hike really fast, everybody's sweating and whatever, but that might not be the most fun thing for your 5-year-old. And so just thinking about what they already like and how you can incorporate that. Like a lot of my memories from hiking when I was younger were like, oh, it's nice because when I go on this hike with my parent, I get to get ice cream at the end. And so that's a really good memory. So those are some things that you can think about. As far as staying motivated along the hike, I think
I have some ideas around that too.
Yeah, great. I would love to hear that. I was just gonna say, make sure you have like the water and the food and the snacks, because those are things that can really impact people's mood.
I just want to make sure, can you hear me?
I can, but maybe you can take the sound down like another notch or two, since now we're talking.
Okay. It's very low, so I didn't know if anyone can hear me, but yeah, I think so. I've done a lot of outdoor running a lot of outdoor educational programs, and I think definitely for like 5-year-olds, something that could be really neat is like some sort of like scavenger hunt or like a sensory walk. So how are you interacting like on the trail, like yeah, using your different senses. So like what are some colors that you might see, or what are some things that you might smell? And so being able to like check things off the list that you'll find along the trail. And yeah, I've done a lot of different like garden-based education where we bring in the senses, and it's just really fun and sparks a lot of like joy for kids and like gets them motivated to get up to the hill. Because maybe your last question is, you know, like is like an overlook, like how many mountains can you spot or whatever. So yeah, just being able to bring some like fun and yeah, interactiveness on the hike.
Love those suggestions. They're very sweet. That's also like a lot of parks that have a visitor center will have something specific for kids too, that if you're like, I don't know how to plan that, I want someone to do it for me, you could call and see, do you have a scavenger hunt for kids? Like a lot of them do already. So there's lots of good resources out there.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Where can I find this link? For Joseph.
Oh, I can find those websites and share them in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, docent hikes can be a really nice way to get into hiking if you're newer or you're bringing along people who are newer, or if you just want to learn things, even if you're a pretty experienced hiker. There's also someone here saying they're tick paranoid. I also have been really tick paranoid, and I think it's really worth the things that you're freaked out by when you're like, I want to go hiking, but I'm scared of this thing. It's worth doing some Googling ahead of time to like see. Often the park will have resources like on their website. This is the type of ticks that exist in our park, or this is the type of poison, this is the poison oak and where it's often along in our park. And those can kind of help you manage the hazards. And if you look on the website, like if you're really scared of bears, you don't need to be scared of bears in the open space preserve. So the website for the park won't bother telling you like what to do with the bears. So that can, if you're also someone who's like wants to manage that a little, the park website will probably tell you most of the things you need to be concerned about, and you don't need to like hear about every single scary thing. Ooh, there's going to be a virtual talk about tick science. That's awesome. That's
I'm so glad people asked about ticks because I didn't have it on the calendar yet, so I wasn't going to promote it. But now you're all like early adopters and you can register early.
Wow. Lots of good programming coming out of the Santa Clara Library. Okay.
I think, yeah, I feel like this is a great time to shift into some sharing some resources. I know a lot of resources have been shared in the chat, but just want to offer some that we found, and then yeah, share other ways for y'all to like stay connected to BAWT, and if there are any other questions that we can answer those. So I'm going to share in the chat a bunch of different resources, and yeah, so there's a lot of really amazing resources that have already been shared by participants in the chat, and some of other ones that I wanted to bring here were just around annual passes. There's a low-income annual venture pass. Some local outfitters. Lower Gear is somebody in the who rents gear out to. You can rent it out anywhere, and yeah, they have like all kinds of camping gear from hiking to backpacking. Anything that you're looking for is on there. We've mentioned REI is a great resource. Also the Santa Clara Library. I know there's hiking poles and bear cans, I'm fairly certain. And also our Milpitas gear library, which will be opening sometime in 2023 or 2024. So definitely like stay tuned. And if you're interested in learning more about BAWT, we can put our website and our Instagram and stuff like that in the chat. Yeah, I also found that Santa Clara County parks offer camping at 5 of the 28 regional parks discounted during like off season times. So that's a pretty neat resource. And yeah, the first website that I popped in the chat just has amazing maps of like all of the parks in your area. And yeah, I would say, yeah, everybody here in the community, it seems like y'all have so much to share. So hopefully we'll be able to share the chat and like everything that's been shared out and just keep the conversation going so we can all get into beautiful outdoor spaces. Is there anything you want to add, Amy? Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple people mentioned All Trails. All Trails is a really popular app for, you can use it as an app or you can use it as just a regular website on a computer. And it's a really popular app where there will be a lot of hikes listed for different places. And you can also, if you use the map, you can you can download maps to use. So there's limitations of taking a map on your phone into the back country or like into a place where you might not have cell service or your phone battery might die or whatever. But a nice thing about that is I really like using All Trails. If I don't know what kind of hike I want to do, I'll look up, like you could look up best hikes in Santa Clara County and it'll give a bunch of different options of suggested trails. It'll tell you where to go, what type of scenery you're gonna see. You can read comments from people who have gone on that hike and somebody might say, I just went this week and there was lots of poison oak, or I just went this week and the trail's in really good condition. Or it might give you ideas of different ways that you can do the hike or tell you how long that you might expect to spend on the hike and what kinds of activities people do there. So that is a really good place to start. If you're like, I really want to go on a long hike, I want to plan ahead, that's a great place to look, is All Trails, and you can just use the website or the app. That's a good one. There's also lots of books on this kind of stuff that you can get from the library. So lots of good options.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if you're curious about getting more involved with BAWT and want to be leading your own outdoor trips for youth in your area, we do have some upcoming outdoor leadership trainings. Our WLT is full, which is our 5-day backpacking course. We still have spots available in our front country leadership training, which is just a 1-night overnight. We also offer wilderness first aid training through a partner organization. And then if you're curious about gaining access to the gear library, we will have gear library orientations in the summer or fall, and those dates are TBD. So yeah, we'd love to like stay connected with all of you. And yeah, looks like Santa Clara has lots of hiking books and camping and other outdoorsy stuff. So that's awesome. You have lots of resources, and yeah.
Does anyone have any more questions about anything we talked about today before we roll into like a little bit of a closing?